So we got this first image of Matt Damon in armor, which looks like quasi-Roman armor, or what people kind of assume looks like that from the period. And he is Odysseus. He is the title character, which a lot of people thought it was going to be Tom Holland, and then people were like, "Oh, it's Tom Holland's big break. He's gonna." But I don't know. I never believed that he was going to be that. It looks good. It does. I mean, we don't really know much. It's just him in the costume with a beard. It looks great. We really don't know much more about it outside. It's got a huge cast, including Tom Holland, Mia Goth, Zendaya, Anne Hathaway, Lupita Nyong'o, Robert Pattinson, Charlize Theron, Benny Safdie, John Bernthal, and John Leguizamo. So far, so the cast just keeps growing, and it's just kind of a who's who right now. Really impressive, but we don't really know too much yet.
Yeah, we do know that there's some set photos coming out of Sicily where they're starting to film. They've got some stuff put together out there. We know that Hoyt van Hoytema is filming it, which is real cool. He is Christopher Nolan's longtime DP. He shot Nope, he shot Tenet, Interstellar, so we know he's working with big talent. We know that he's working with a big camera, right? IMAX has a new 65 millimeter camera that they're shooting this film on, and apparently him and Hoytema are really excited to get going on this thing. Maybe they won't have to ADR the whole picture, but they probably will just end up having to ADR everything, just like Oppenheimer. We know it's got a stacked cast. We know it's a sword and sandal from Chris Nolan, which is particularly exciting. Like, I know my man has done some historical films for sure, but nothing quite like this. He hasn't really tackled like straight up myth yet. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how that plays in. And naturally, because this is under Nolan's Syncope banner, we know that it's going to be coming directly from him and his usual team of writers. We know that it's probably going to have something to do with time. That's usually a very central theme in Christopher Nolan's work, though how, none of us can say for sure. But it's definitely interesting. Like, there's definitely something happening with the Odyssey. It's going to be curious to see what shakes out next. I know I've seen some people harshing the Matt Damon fit because they say it's not historically accurate. Probably. Like, I wouldn't know, man. Like, I know Nolan's never been that dedicated to that kind of stuff.
Rule of cool.
Yes. Like, does it look cool? Great. We're putting it on screen. We'll see. I wonder if we were talking about this earlier. You think Ridley Scott's scared of this? Sword and Sandal director Ridley Scott. You think he's worried about the Odyssey at all?
Maybe. I did want to talk a little bit about the modern history of the Sword and Sandal epic, which was revived in 2000 with Ridley Scott's Gladiator. That went on to be a huge success and also brought us copycat films like Troy from 2004, Kingdom of Heaven from 2005 or so, which was also a Ridley Scott film. We saw a bit of a hiatus, and then of course Gladiator 2, and now this. And Sword and Sandal's a big risk because they're very expensive to make, and sometimes they don't always hit. But I think in the hands of someone like Christopher Nolan, who's going to do this, as he's going to go as hard as this genre has ever had. It's going to be authentic. He's shooting on location. He's building practical effects. So I think it's probably going to be a big hit.
Yeah, I'm curious to see if Matt Damon may get an Oscar nom out of it. Right, been nominated twice for Best Actor, hadn't won it. Did get an Academy Award for screenplay for Good Will Hunting, but otherwise, like, if he manages to get on that Oppenheimer track, right, like Cillian Murphy could take him right to the top. We'll have to see.
Could be.
Next story this week, AMC Stubs A-List is hiking their monthly fee, and I have seen people saying they're totally okay with this, which is nuts to me. I'm a Cinemark subscriber. All right, I'm on that Cinemark rewards program. I don't do AMC Stubs A-List, but this doesn't sound like a cheap fee. What do you know about this, Andy?
So the fees are going most places. This is about $20 a month, a little bit more expensive in the California, New York area where it's about 24. It's going up to nearly $30 for cases. It's going up to $28, excuse me, for New York and California. It's going up to 23, 24 for most other places. And they're attempting to offer value, which they're currently, you can see 3 free movies a week. Now you can see 4. Which seems like a good deal, except there's not that many movies that come out. After 2 weeks, you will have seen everything that's out. They also are lowering the age that you can be an AMC Stubs member to 13. So the teens can be Stubs members and get on that. So, if you're near somewhere that has a big theater and it's playing a ton of stuff, maybe it's still worth it. But man, that's pricey.
Hey, nothing wrong with the movies being your babysitter, right? Send that 13-year-old to the theater. They'll take care of him over there. It's funny the 13-year-old can't have a credit card, but they can have an AMC A-list pass. AMC A-list came as a result of MoviePass. Let's remember, right? The almighty $10 a month, as many movies you want. AMC A-list spun out of that. Cinemark Rewards spun out of that. For my money, like, I like what I'm doing over at Cinemark Rewards because I don't plan on seeing 3 or 4 films a week. But dude, there's definitely some film heads on Twitter that are all about it. They've been like, yo, finally a 4th film in a week. Like, crazy. Seems like a lot. Seems like a lot to me. I'm not an A-list subscriber. Adam Aaron, their CEO, said that they haven't hiked this price like ever. Like, this is like a first thing for them. You know, our first price increase in years. I'm sorry, excuse me. And even so, A-list is still an incredible bargain. We'll have to see, man. Probably not going to hurt them. AMC's kind of the big one. But speaking of the big one, Goonies 2 is happening. Maybe. Probably. Apparently, Steven Spielberg's producing it. Variety had the story this week. Andy, what do you know about this?
So the Goonies, which most people should know, is a big hit of the 1980s. Came out right in smack in the middle, 1985. It's an adventure film with a bunch of teens from like the Pacific Northwest who find a treasure map and then go on this hunt for kind of buried treasure to, you know, save the family home. It's a very 80s plot. It's a little bit like Indiana Jones for kids because it's got some of that scary stuff, the adventure, but it's a little bit more family friendly. And it's a who's who of cast. It originally starred Josh Brolin, Sean Astin, Corey Feldman, Ke Huy Quan in one of his early roles after Indiana Jones. It's a classic. And it's a lot of fun. And they're doing a sequel 40 years later. And it will be written and directed by the original writer and director, Chris Columbus, who of course also directed things like Home Alone, 2 of the first 2 Harry Potter movies. He's a who's who of the kind of children's cinema, really knows what he's doing. It's in good, but I think it will be challenging to update, you know, this kind of, you know, a hidden adventure. Get a lot of that anymore, and it would be. I'm interested to see how that works in 2025.
Yeah, I like this bit. Apparently, Ke Huy Quan was asked about this on the red carpet for Love Hurts, the world premiere, where he was standing alongside Corey Feldman, co-star from the Goonies, of course, who joined him. They both said they'd love for it to happen. Feldman said, all I can say is get us all together. Everybody's looking good. Sean's looking good. Josh is looking good. We're all looking, Sean Astin and Josh Brolin. We're all looking good still, and we're all alive. Goonies 7 never say die. There's hope. I suppose so, man. It seemed like it'd be an easy paycheck for them. But before we get away from it, real quick, Andy, 35,000 foot view. What do you think the plot of Goonies 2 is? I'm going to guess that all the Goonies still live in a neighborhood nearby, or they all come together for some reason, look for some kind of treasure, and maybe there's some kids about, but it's mostly going to be the old heads, right? That's going to be who's holding that movie up.
Well, you know, what do we do in a legacy sequel? We bring back the old characters, we introduce some new characters. Yeah, because this is literally 40 years later. So yeah, everyone's going to have a teen of their own that's going to come along for the for the ride. And yeah, you gotta have a treasure map. You gotta have some hidden treasure somewhere else that people stumble upon. You got to save the local, you know, bagel shop or whatever, and
Yeah.
have at it.
They should call it Goonies 2, Too Many Goonies. Because there's going to be a Goonie and then a child Goonie next to him. There's going to be a ton of them. It's going to be great. There's going to be 19 people in that cast, and none of them.
Yeah.
One more story. Go ahead.
Yeah, it just reminds me of it might be they might do the kind of thing where it's like like Treasure Island, a Goonies story, so where they can kind of continue. Like it won't just be a sequel. They might like try and launch a small franchise or something.
Yeah, right. Something to do with the pirate ship from the first one. Yeah, sure. One more story this week. Captain America Brave New World is opening pretty big at the box office despite reviews. Turns out it's not doing as poorly as I think maybe some people think. What's going on at the box office this week?
So Captain America Brave New World actually overperformed a little bit. Despite rough critic and audience scores, it made nearly $200 million at the global box office. 80, 100 million domestic. So it's not a hit, but it's not a flop either. It's probably going to at least break even, if not maybe get a little bit in the to the green. So it's off to a good start, and there's virtually no competition in the next few weeks. So I think it could kind of it might have some legs on it.
I got to eat some crow for this segment because I definitely did not think Captain America Brave New World was going to do all that good. And for the record, I don't think it's going to make $1 billion, but word on the street is it's about a $425 million bar to clear to break even. Globally, they're probably going to make that. I don't think it's going to do that good overseas, but we were talking about this last night. Andy pointed out, like, cleared 92 million globally opening weekend, like overseas, so 100 million here. So yeah, it'll probably make its money back. Seems like a fine bet for Disney. Why did they spend so much money on this movie? I don't know. How can they avoid spending this much money on future movies? Smarter budgeting. But Disney's not in that business. They're in the business of making big bets, all right, and placing them. And this seems to be one, and it seems to be paying off. Like, I know it had a ton of reshoots. I know it had a ton of problems. We're going to get into the actual movie here in just a second, but on its face, like, seems like a W, right? Disney W, I think, with Captain America.
Yeah, absolutely. One that I've been saying is that the magic of Marvel isn't the good films. It's getting people excited about the mediocre films and kind of the middle of the road stuff, that making those a hit. And that's kind of what's happened here. This bodes well for Thunderbolts and Fantastic Four this summer. If your kind of middle of the road movie does really well, then your really good movies will hopefully knock it out of the park.
All right. Well, with that, we should jump in. Well, hold on. Anything else from the box office this week? I know things are kind of slowing down, but even still, we're covering everything.
A couple of interesting things. So, the fourth installment in the Bridget Jones series, Bridget Jones Mad About a Boy, had a weird opening where it opened here in the US on Peacock, but in the UK in theaters because it's a British property, and so it's known more there. So they didn't want to risk it in the US, and they wanted to try and drive subs. Opened to 35 million globally. I think really strong start for that. Really surprising. So it's strange that they didn't release it in theaters here. Also wanted to point out that the slasher Heart Eyes actually did better its second weekend than the first weekend, coming in at 22 million. That's kind of a big story. It somehow has made more, so it's doing really well. And then finally, I wanted to touch on an animated film out of China that might become the most $2 billion film. It's called Nija 2. So it's a sequel to Nija 1. I don't know anything about it. It's an animated film. I've heard it's got great action sequences. It's really long. It's like 2.5 hours. But it has already cleared 1.3 billion. It's made more money than Inside Out 2. And everyone thinks it's going to make 2 billion, which is crazy. And like, I'd never heard about this until this week. And you got this movie. And that is just in that market. Like, this doesn't have a global release or anything like that.
Yeah, dude. I don't know anything about that movie either, but I have not been able to stop seeing headlines about it. If that movie made that much money on that side of the world and nobody here in America is aware of it, think of what, like, a 4-quadrant, think of how that would perform here. Like, if kids and families were apprised of this thing and maybe it, like, were released here with the proper English stuff, like, I don't know, dude. That might clear 2 billion. I don't know anything about it, but apparently it is a straight banger. Every time I see numbers for it, it's like just making more and more money. It's like people are going to see it for the 5th and 6th time. It must be great. Whatever's happening in that movie must be a great time. So yeah, hopefully we got a copy of that somewhere over here. Like, that thing's going to be the biggest animated movie ever, I think. Like, it's crazy. I don't understand the legs under it. It looks like a computer simulation or something. It's nuts.
Yeah, I might check it out. I think I did see a screening somewhere around, but yeah, I did hear a description that, like, the final battle scenes, they make the big fight at the end of Avengers Endgame seem quaint. So
really, I heard that the current, like, English subs for it are real basic and direct translation, and they're not like.
Oh yeah, you need the subs.
That's what I heard. Yeah, I heard it was really 1-to-1 with the language translation. So right now it's like you might want to. I don't know anything about it, but that's kind of what I heard. I heard if you're going to see it as an English experience, you might be a little disappointed. But I don't know anything about it. Just seems like a big movie. Keep it on off script for more. We will report back on that as we find out. But for now, plenty of news. We got to get to the first film of the episode. I know we already talked about Hellraiser and we already talked about Final Destination, but let's get into it. Andy's going to be taking the summary on this one. Andy, please take it away.
Captain America: Brave New World